and Uncork New York was great, and it was really our banner theme for so many years. And so now we're, as you know, Boldly New York. And what we quickly realized when we announced Boldly New York was there wasn't a good action plan behind it to help really get this unified theme out there about New York State wines and grapes. And, just having a really strong central message to back up that brand promise. And we decided that it was important for us to develop a marketing plan that actually would operationalize how we talk and present about New York State wines. And, I'll go back to Jim's favorite phrase: diversity is our strength, unity is our power. And I think certainly we have so much to celebrate in the state, and so many different types of wine and grapes, and sometimes it's hard for us to agree on what that message is. And we felt that it's important that we come up with a plan so that we're all rowing together in the same direction, but maintaining our own unique identities on a regional basis, or on the basis of the grapes that we're using to make our products. But I would also say it's sort of we got to walk and chew gum, right? So we used to have assets like the New York Wine Course and Reference that we used to help train trade on how to present New York State wines, and even wine educators. We did a wine guide every year, and we haven't reinvested in those products for a while because we knew we wanted to update the brand. We knew how we positioned the story of New York wines and grapes had to be refreshed and updated. So I guess going back to the walk and chew gum, every other self-respecting wine region has some of these core assets, and they refresh them and they update them on an annual basis. And I think, if we want to continue to be considered an international wine region, or a region of international reputation, it's important that we redevelop these assets as an organization. So, we're helping to tell that unified story of, all the diversity and greatness that is, happening in our state. But also part of this is for us to be a little aspirational, and, maybe not do the same things that every other region does, and do things that are unique and appropriate for us and fit what, helps us tell the story of our region in the best way. So I think what you're going to hear from Padilla is, a really sound plan of how we will walk and chew gum, but also how we're going to distinguish ourselves from many other wine regions. Because I think tried and true is great, but tried and true also sometimes, it's hard to differentiate yourself from the mix of all the grapes out there. I think an important thing just to keep in mind is that this project was actually mainly funded by our export program, which comes from funds from the USDA MAP program. So it very intentionally has a broad international focus because, again, I think we want to play on the world stage. We feel like we are, worthy of international reputation. So the assets that are going to be developed out of this project are going to have that eye to, we are doing seminars and tastings in other countries, or in Canada, or in Asia. And so what we're developing is assets that can be adapted for international markets and for telling that story of New York wines on the world stage. So I guess I will stop there with my comments, and I will introduce Kristen Ingraham and Perry Lauder from Padilla, and they'll take the conversation over from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. So we pulled together just some visuals to guide our conversation today. But I just want to start with just saying it is a huge pleasure to be here speaking with you all. I am a proud lifelong New Yorker. Every corner, I've moved a lot. And so I have grown up with and around New York wine my whole life. And I'm a huge fan before, during, and I'm certain long after this project. So it's rare when you get to sort of combine your professional passions with your personal passions, and this is very much what this was from me personally. We sort of joke because when I first met Sam and Val and team, we started talking about this, this really exciting undertaking that was ahead for the foundation. And we kept finding that our sort of common language was communication through metaphor. So if you'll bear with us, we thought, what better way to bring our work and our progress together to you through metaphor. So there we go. So the metaphor that we live in is that we are building a house together, and we've sort of we've beaten this to death. I mean, going to what Sam was saying, there was a lot of opportunities for some bathroom remodels and updating elements of the old house, but really now it's time to build the dream home. We're building the chateau, and that was really, really exciting. So the team came to us and essentially said, this is our dream. Boldly New York is our dream house, and we know we want to build it. We're hearing from all the folks within our organization and the stakeholders that they're going out to, that it's time, and it's we love the house that we live in, and we've been doing a great job doing all those remodels and updating the pieces that we have, but really we're ready to go forth. And so we're welcoming you into the story of this dream house. But it's not built yet, and that's the key thing that we want to talk about today is all of the fun and excitement and work that's gone into what is going to make the New York Wine Dream House the New York Wine Dream House. And I think what's important to know is this is not a sort of vision in the sky that isn't based in reality, and it's not a start from scratch and ignore what we've always had as the frame of our home all along. So our process in coming together was, okay, if this is the dream, how do we make it a reality? How do we build those blueprints together? How do we determine where this house lives? How do we lay the foundation so it's solid and supporting every floor that we want to put on it, every extension that we see in our future? We want to make sure that it's the dream house, but that the dream house is always growing with us. So where we started, Kara, if you want to jump to the next slide, is we had to recognize where we were coming from. And we are not content to build a dream home from scratch. We want to build a dream home that also salvages and restores the most gorgeous historical home possible. And that is really the foundation of New York wine. And so as we're building our blueprints and building our 2-year marketing plan, and honestly, we built a little further because we're just too darn excited to stop at 2 years. We had to think about, where are we going to be communicating? What is the tone of voice that we're going to be using? What are the messages that we feel are the most important to say who we are, where we're going, who our people are? And so we spent a good amount of time really within our historic home deciding what pieces we're going to keep and how they're going to fit into that dream home. So as we're doing that, we discovered some, beautiful hidden brick walls that we knew, like, oh my gosh, we didn't even know this was here, and it has to come with us. And we also, saw, some beautiful crown molding that we love, but we sort of realized maybe it's not going to fit in that future dream home. So this was a really exciting process for us to just immerse ourselves into your world, spend a lot of time talking to people, and really walking away from that with a few things. So one, we decided all of the salvageable pieces, and we're excited to share with you how we came to those decisions. We built the blueprints around the pieces that we had, and identified all the pieces that aren't there yet, and places that we want to build and additions that we want to put on. And then we took it a step further. I mean, we're sort of picking out curtains and wallpaper, and figuring out all the ways to decorate this house. But it comes down to, now we have our dream and our vision for the home. We have the framework and the foundation. We have the pieces that are coming with us. And it's sort of, now we're at the moment where we're starting to build, and we have absolutely the experts of, the best plumbers, the best electricians. But we really see this group as the contractors that we desperately need to really, really bring this to life. So speaking through this metaphor, we do kind of want to bring it into reality a little bit. So I'm going to turn it to Perry, and he's going to talk a little bit about, okay, if that's the world that we're living in, how did we go about all of those stages to get to where we are? So Perry, I will turn it to you to talk about our time in the historical home.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So, like any good construction project, you need to have an inspection somewhere along the way. Taking this metaphor even further than you might have ever thought was possible. So, our process, Padilla's been engaged with the foundation since the summer. And the first important critical step in our partnership was to understand what are the key strengths of New York's story. What makes New York a compelling wine producer, whether it's for a trade audience, for media, for consumers. And then so to that end, we wanted to make sure that we heard from all perspectives across the industry. So we spoke with consultants who are representing us and communicating on our behalf, meaning the foundation, in international markets. We spoke with a number of winery representatives and alliance representatives across the state, a number of individuals in different positions that make up the large trade group, as well as media and educators, all to understand the different components, the history, what are the pieces that are worth bringing forward into this next iteration of our story, and where we need to amplify and really proclaim, this is who we are, this is the stake we're putting in the ground, and this is how we're different and why. And so not only did we have individual, one-on-one conversations and some group conversations, but we then wanted to validate some of our hypotheses with a critical mass. So a number of quantitative surveys across wineries and trade, just to make sure that the hypotheses that we were forming and some of the messages we were starting to create were authentic, were resonating, and ultimately are going to be, that we can use in a variety of ways for a variety of audiences. In combination with that, a number of other resources at our disposal. So we looked at everything we possibly could to understand what makes New York unique and compelling and worth a taste. So taking those elements from our inspection and really starting to build in the key pillars within this frame of the story here. So we went through our research process and then an iteration with the foundation have started to develop some of those core pieces, starting internal, more strategic, but working our way out into those external expressions of that from the brand strategy work that has already been completed to the messaging work that we've been developing, and then moving forward into how do we deploy those messages? How do we start to share the story with the world? And so those pieces are coming together. As you'll see, making this a little bit more specific and applicable to our task at hand, from the house metaphor. But when we think about New York wine and the very strengths we have to leverage, from kind of the broadest perspective, there are really 5 categories that we want to make sure that we are communicating to our various stakeholders, because it's a combination of these pieces that will ultimately help us stand out. And so it's not just about the place itself, although that is a critical piece of the puzzle. It's not just about the people, although we know that is an instrumental component to our success. We wouldn't be where we are without the people who have the passion and the commitment and the openness. So there's so much to unpack in each of these different categories that our research uncovered. And so the key here is, what are the uniquely New York articulations of these attributes, and how do they work together to tell a story that's going to make somebody interested in either trying us or retrying, and ultimately building affinity and loyalty and advocacy.
Yeah, and I think to Sam's point, we want this to be a foundation for the long term and for everyone, but really we wanted to make this a foundation of allowing the region to shine in the way that it should shine, both domestically and internationally. And what we also love about this is that, it's sort of the colloquialism of the sum is greater than its parts. This is absolutely a moment where the sum is greater than the parts, and the distinction from other regions is that really, as we sort of applied this lens other places, they don't have the story that we do, where all 5 are working together and truly a place of strength. So many of the other regions are one thing and a little bit of the others, whereas New York just has this, like Sam said, the diversity and unity. And so we were really excited to explore that even further.
Well, I just want to add to this point, because when we were going through the rebranding process to get to Boldly New York, which, I think at first there were some mixed feelings about it, because it's like, do you mean our wine styles are bold? Because we're not trying to make bold California wines, but Boldly doesn't have to do with the wines. It has to do with our attitudes as New Yorkers, because we were trying to figure out, well, what is the brand that we can adopt that really unifies everyone across the state? So when we went through the strategic planning process and we were coming up with a new mission statement and vision statement, it was like, well, what's that thread that connects us? And it was, Russell Hearn in a meeting on Long Island was like, well, inherently we're a cool and cold climate viticulture state. And no matter if you're growing Labrusca hybrids or vinifera, it's all cool climate. And that's the connecting, fabric for, at least from a viticulture perspective. But, what really makes New York a unique state? And I think this is, in my experience working on the branding of New York as a business destination when I was with Empire State Development, it's like, well, what's that story? Because we have a very diverse state, but I think it's the fact that no matter where you are, we're constantly innovative. We have this gritty attitude almost. And so, it's a courageous act to decide to, I think, start a vineyard in a winery in New York. It's not easy. You're making a beautiful product, but it's not a predictable process, and it's not just courageous, it's audacious, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that also applies to, folks that live in New York City. It's audacious to think you can make it here in the city, much like, you know, any other industry in the state. So I think it's this just, you know, gumption and just innovation, and, you know, we grit our teeth and we do it. And we have this audacious attitude, and that's really what Boldly New York is about. And so we, as Kristen was saying, you know, we want to solidify that foundation, then build up the tools to kind of help support telling that story. And I think that's what makes us different from a lot of other wine regions, is this audacious spirit we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, it's the convergence of all of these things that work so well together. You know, when we think about diversity, it's not just the grapes or the techniques we're using. It's the variety of the landscapes and the terroir and the conditions that produce them. It's the types of people who come together and where they come from and their experiences and stories. So there's really a lot. The great news is that our research uncovered a lot of strengths to leverage. And now it's about telling that story and doing so loudly. And so, you know, there are a few things that we are starting to sort of coalesce around. One is the unique articulation of these 5 different attributes and how those start to play out in messaging. One of the other things that we've talked about is, okay, well, you know, bridging the gap from the brand into messaging. How do we think about Boldly New York? What does it mean? And I think we've covered this already. But just to say again, you know, when we think about Boldly New York, it's not just meant to be a descriptor of a taste profile. It really is, you know, boldly, the true adverb is a description of how we are going about our craft, our community, our approach and our expertise. It's, you know, it's everything that is going into the wine and the experience. And so this is a grounding piece for us to make sure that we are speaking to not only the flavor, but the people and the place and the innovation and all of these attributes that are so important to the overall story. And so to give you a sense of kind of, well, I've, you know, talked about where we've been over the last couple of months. We went through our research phase, found these key strengths that we wanted to pull through into messaging in particular. In that research process, we were also asking some questions about them that are applied to marketing. So, you know, not just help us determine the right themes that we should be sharing with the market, but also what are some ideas on how we should do that? You know, what is your perspective on the different tactics that we've been using to date, or what we should be using in the future? So really kind of multi-purpose conversations. So we had all of that research late in the summer, early fall. From there, we've been building these messaging pillars based on that research, articulating our strengths in a way that is compelling and resonant for media, for consumers, etc. And now we are deep in the throes of the marketing plan development. So we're working through some iterations of that now. Broadly, well, we've talked about it. So it's a 2-year plan to help us, you know, add more meat to the Boldly New York brand and start to help the market associate us with a few key attributes in particular, and really build, you know, not only awareness but meaning behind the Boldly New York brand. And so we are, like I said, working on the marketing plan right now. The frame is coming up, and we're excited to start filling in with various features. So, Kristen, anything you wanted to add here?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, you know, going back to, I'm going to kill this metaphor. Y'all are going to be sick of me when I'm done. But, you know, the messaging, it's a big part of that is we're building this dream house. We know who we want to come and live in it with us. How are we going to convince them that this is the place that they want to be? So it's really There's a lot around the demographics and the psychographics and what is motivating that behavior. And that was super informative in developing the marketing plan, because really your marketing plan is the development of the tools and the moments in time and the delivery channels of how you're gonna motivate that behavior. And I think what is complex but very exciting is, we want to be thinking of that end user, of that consumer. Who do we want lifting a glass, which I can't wait to do after this call. But, who do we want lifting that glass, and what do they need to hear? Where do they need to hear it? Who do they need to hear it from? And how do they need to hear it? And that's so much of what we've been sort of cooking up behind the scenes. And we're just so excited to see it come to life. I would say little by little, but it's going to be lots by lots as soon as we hit that ground running, to really make sure that Boldly New York is coming to life very soon. We're so excited about it.
Yeah, and one of the key features of this plan, this shouldn't come as a surprise, but like Kristen mentioned, to ultimately reach consumers, it is a multi-faceted, multi-pronged approach, that it can't just be the foundation sharing messages out into the world. It really is about how do we equip everyone with whom we come in contact, to help convey our messages, and tell our story. So, whether it's our wineries, trade, media, how do we make sure that everyone understands the value of telling a consistent, compelling story, and then is equipped to actually do it? And so the marketing plan you'll find is meant to address how we can engage everyone in our neighborhood for the benefit of ultimately consumer comprehension and affinity. So we need your help in building this house. We are working on the marketing plan now, and there's a lot to come out of it. So stay tuned for more. And we've got, I think, a few questions that we're happy to sort of pose to the group to guide some discussion for a few minutes. But before we jump into that, I think just happy to open the floor and see if there's any initial reaction or question from folks on the call.
I just want to add to this point here, just so maybe it's a little bit more tangible for those who are on the call. So, all of us have invested resources in, bringing trade and media up to the Finger Lakes to do vineyard visits or tasting room tours, or maybe they've stayed in your B&B and you're telling them, the story of your vineyard in the Finger Lakes. And, there certainly was a certain perception of New York wines and how they were made 20 or 30 years ago. And many of you made great strides to elevate the quality and elevate the reputation of the region. And, I personally participated in a virtual tasting by a New York City retailer that has pivoted towards doing these type of tastings. And it was someone that, came on one of our New York Drinks New York tours. And it's great that we build these advocates for us. But I noticed that sometimes those old stories and those old memes about the industry seem to repeat themselves. And it's like, I think that some of the folks in the trade that we've educated, they like being on the inside. They like being on the know-how, or like saying, yeah, the New York used to make wines like this way, and they talk about it. And that sort of, covers over the positive points that we're living in now. And it's been a story of quality and a strong reputation for more than 10 years now. And so I think, I'll just say, even when we used to organize these vineyard visits, we'd go to 5 wineries in one day, and they'd get the same story about, well, the Finger Lakes has this terroir, it's limestone, and the glacier did this to our vineyard site, so this is what's happening here. But it's essentially the same story and 5 different visits. And so I guess the way I define it is a little bit like, we got to solidify the pedagogy or the educational experience about New York wines and how we build these champions for us. So they're going out there and telling the most empowering story for us, but we're also all kind of focused on telling the most empowering story. And, you know, I think the history is important to remember, but we have a very compelling story to tell about how things are happening today. And that's what I'm really hoping this project achieves, is that, you know, we can position ourselves in the marketplace in a compelling way that really is reflective of where we are today.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Sam. And again, it's those who know, and those who don't know need to know the right things. And I think the last piece of this puzzle is, you know, we love the nuance and the complexity of essentially having multiple regions in our region. And what we love is that, you know, the power of coming together, but also the individuality in those moments for everyone to shine on their own and shine towards a greater good. That's really going to be super exciting for us. So as Perry mentioned, you know, we would love to answer any questions. We couldn't help ourselves because we've been in question mode for quite a while. We have a few for you, but of course we want to give you all the first opportunities. If there's any details or background that we can share, I know spoken a lot in metaphor, so we can take it out of metaphor too, if that's helpful.
I just have a quick comment. It's fun for me to see that you guys listed people, place, and process as part of your brand elements, main brand elements. It's actually, those are the 3 words that we say a lot at Lieb Cellars. Those are what we consider our Lieb Cellars brand values. And then basically, you know, the more specific values fall under those 3 categories. But it was just funny because I'm doing a brand positioning refresher for my staff next month. And so earlier today, I literally listed people, place, and process for Lieb. And then you guys just presented it. So I think it's great. And like you said, it's really important for us to be delivering consistent messaging. And the fact that we're going to have, you know, similar values at like the state levels and the regional levels is important. And it means that, you know, you guys were really listening when we talked about like kind of what was important to us. So I think I'm excited to see the initial work, and I think it's spot on.
That's awesome. Thanks, Amy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's helpful feedback, and yeah, I mean that's definitely one of our goals with the messaging work in particular. Is, you know, the last thing we want to do is create messages that someone feels like they can't authentically say, or it just doesn't feel comfortable, you know, doesn't sit well. You know, we need to speak to the unique and specific strengths of New York, but it also needs to be broad enough that enough people can speak to it effectively. And that's not to say that people can't put their own twist. You know, we fully expect your version of what, you know, the people part of that story to be totally different than another winery, but what brings us together, there are these sort of overarching themes, and so they do need to hold true. So that's great to hear. Any other thoughts or questions? I realize it's a little tough without more of the detail, but hopefully this gives you a glimpse into the project, the process, and there's a lot more to come.
I know you guys have some deeper dive slides, maybe we can share some of the positioning statements or just how you've curtailed the story of New York for specific audiences.
Yeah, we'd love to. World premiere.
Sounds good. All right. So, sorry, I'm just jumping ahead a little bit. Yeah. So why don't we go a layer deeper as we talk about these 5 Ps in this framework. So when we think about the uniquely New York articulation that I teed up earlier, across our research, there were a couple key findings that informed each one of these and how we will tell that story. And so what does that look like? This is the next level of that messaging that ultimately will be tweaked for specific audiences, deployed across different materials. But these are the themes that we want to drive, and that we know are true to who we are as a wine producing state. And so when we think about the place, it really is a story of diversity. The diversity of terroir, the soil, the climate, and what that then means for the types of stories that come out, the wine itself, the experiences you have drinking it. When we look at the people, this one could probably be its own, there's so much worth sharing about the people, and will be shared. But if we had to distill it, we're using this boldly rooted message to speak to the commitment, the passion and the dedication of those who, to Sam's earlier point, choose to plant their roots in New York, pardon the pun, but who choose to make that bold decision, and make creative decisions and support their local communities and support sustainable practices. So there's a commitment that we want to make sure comes through as we start to talk about ourselves more broadly.
Yeah, and I think that there's one of the things that we heard sort of loud and clear is there's an underlying misconception that it's sort of success by accident or ending up in New York by happenstance. And so the choice is really what we find to be so bold. As Sam mentioned, you have to be audacious. This is not the easiest place, but people are choosing it because of the opportunity that it brings, because of the challenge, because they want to dig their heels in and make the most delicious wine. So we just loved that was sort of a challenge within the pillar that we can't wait to tackle. And we've already started hearing these wonderful stories of people who really do embody this and bring it to life, and whose stories we want to tell to bring this to life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, Kristen. With each of these messages, we've heard stories from our conversation, and we'll be continuing to gather more, because they ultimately, our messages need proof points to be compelling. Otherwise, they're just messages. So, and we're building that out. So I think to wrap up the other 3 pieces here, when we think about our process and approach broadly, it is one of openness. And this one also is a nice descriptor of our people as well. There's a warmth and a willingness to share, to invite questions, to invite conversation. But it's also an openness to different types of techniques and embracing different types of grapes for that matter. And the fact that New York is a relatively young wine producing region actually gives you permission and a unique freedom to pursue whatever type of approach you want. And that's one of the beauties of being in New York.
I just wanted to pull the veil back on this one a little bit too, is
Sure.
because this has an international scope, this project, I think the name of this originally was Boldly Creative. and at least our consultants in Western Europe are like, well, New York is not the only creative wine region. We got, France, and everyone else can claim that they're creative. And so, we played with this thesaurus a little bit. And the reason we landed on open was, I think it's rooted in our people. And, if you walk into a tasting room, you're very likely going to meet an owner or the winemaker, maybe the vineyard manager, but it's the fact that, we might be gruff New Yorkers on most days. We do have a warm and welcoming vibe, and, we're accessible. And I think it's also, the openness of this innovation, but I think it starts with the fact that inherently as New Yorkers, we're warm and welcoming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the climate's not hospitable, but we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Then when it comes to the palette piece of the equation, we knew the biggest challenge here was addressing the boldly New York brand and the associations that people would probably jump to in terms of palette. But so the point here, and what we will be communicating is that in terms of flavor and palette, it really is about nuance, and that boldly doesn't mean it's in your face. It doesn't have to mean that. It can be, boldly subtle, boldly surprising, layered. And so there is a level of intrigue that we are trying to create with all these messages, but in particular with the palette. To say there's much more to us than the one note in your face that some other regions might be known for.
Yeah. And I think what's so exciting about that is, many regions, they're one thing for everyone. And we essentially are a choose your own adventure region where we really have actually something different and something nuanced for everyone. And so that's really exciting to explore. And certainly, with the exception of maybe, Virginia briefly dipped their toe into trying to tell that story and couldn't back it up. We can tell it and we can back it up. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. That versatility is really something to be celebrated. And then this last piece, around progress, it really is, evolving. It's that innovation story. When we conducted our trade survey, and we asked participants to pick from a series of, I think it was about 15 different attributes. I think wines from New York are blank. The number one term was evolving. And so there's already some recognition within the industry that the great things are happening in New York and there's momentum being built. And so let's continue to build on that. Let's tell that story. Let's talk about how we're advancing the science and the different, scientific and academic institutions within our borders. Let's talk about the innovation in the face of the pandemic. Like, there are so many different proof points and a lot of kind of fertile ground for messaging there as well, and storytelling. So this hopefully gives you a better sense of where we're headed. The pieces of the house are coming into place, and from this, the marketing tactics will come, which will deploy these messages, a mix of these in the market. So I want to be conscious of time. I know, Val, you want a little bit of time here at the end. So any final questions or thoughts?
I'm going to call out Scott because he's been in the vanguard of New York wines for many years and is very innovative. And I'm curious to hear how this all initially lands on you.
It lands pretty well. I like the whole house concept and the building, tearing down and rebuilding. I like it. I understand where you're coming from on the boldly now much better than I did when you first broke it out. I think this has a lot of potential to go forwards with, and I've already written down some nice little notes that we can do at Fox Run that can help carry this on, especially to the trade.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Todd, you got anything you want to add? I know you're a relatively new winery, but you've been a champion for the region for a long time.
Yeah, Sam, I would just say that, as a winery owner and a winemaker, I think the biggest thing I can contribute is to, make good quality wines that people can enjoy. And I guess I would look to you guys to teach us how to communicate this message that you want us to share.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great message. It's just, teach us how to do it.
Yep. I think that's in the plan. For
Good
sure.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. That we know it's going to be important to do some education and honestly give folks a chance to practice. To feel comfortable with these messages. What do they look like? Uniquely in the context of your winery. Like, what are the stories and the proof points that you have that can ladder up to some of these messages? So that's sort of education and training is a key piece of the marketing plan.
Can't wait.
I can't either. I'm
Thank you.
you guys, moving this forward.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, this has been such a pleasure to work on and immerse ourselves in for the past few months. Can't say enough about the team that you all have pulled together and how great they've been to collaborate with on this.
Right back at you, Kristen. We're going to have to source you like a big, fat gift basket of New York wine. I can't believe we haven't done that yet. I don't want to give it up for
Like I
surprise,
said,
but...
I mean, I've been doing my research for years, so I'll just go through the list and tell you, the handful that I haven't tried yet.
That's right. You can just pick it out, and And I love the fact that you said choose your own adventure. I don't know if we talked about this, but before I ever came to this job, I was a wine enthusiast, wine lover of New York wines, and I always felt like that's what it was. Like on a given day, I want a different experience, but I felt like New York wine had the options for me no matter how I felt. I just needed a roadmap, and I feel like this is the beginning, to use another analogy, of that roadmap. Like people will know exactly what our messages are, what they're getting, and then wineries can use them as they feel comfortable with them and as they see fit. And so if you guys would indulge me, maybe I could have 5 minutes just to give you an update on programs, because we only have one house and we're living in it under construction, kind of, as you can see, but it's our job kind of as the staff to make the house, which I'm kind of using the analogy to our programs, not only livable and comfortable, but enjoyable and a place where you can actually get some stuff done. So I just wanted to give you an update on where we are, and I'll try to be brief because I know everybody's busy, but I'll just share my screen and hopefully this will work. How does that fit? Does everybody see just it says membership and marketing update? Awesome. So again, thank you, Terry and Kristen. You're welcome to sit in on this and kind of listen to where we are. We're just going to take a few minutes to kind of go through what's happening with some of our programs. We're going to fly through them. So everything from what you guys are doing to some updates on membership, the New York Wine Classic, what's happening with our virtual seminars. It's been a busy few months for us, plus we've been working with Terry and Kristen. So now you can see why we've been a little all over the place sometimes on our calls. We've been doing a lot of things while working on this project. So thank you very much to you guys. It's been a lot of hard work. The next step in the journey, I feel like I should have paid Todd $20 or something, is working with you guys. So I don't think I'm giving up too much by saying in early 2021, part of our process will be to probably host live information sessions for all the wineries and for all our key constituents and stakeholders to talk about our new marketing strategy. The plan is that the sessions are going to give people the tools and the resources that they need to help us refine them, certainly, but then help incorporate those messages as they're appropriate for your winery or for your retail establishment or your restaurant or even for consumers, just to be a champion of New York wines and communities in other ways that we have yet to imagine. So as a part of a basic package of marketing assets, we're going to provide those to you to start up for your use. But again, it's kind of just the beginning of the journey, or the next phase in the house building. We keep saying that the creation of additional things like point of sale materials and electronic press kits and other things, this is, as you can see, still a work in progress. And we keep talking about it as staff, is that it's kind of part of our DNA now. It's going to be baked into everything we do. This consistent messaging is part of everything, including membership. So kind of speaking of membership, the marketing assets are going to be provided in kind of packages. You guys probably, since you're on this call and you're close friends with the foundation, you know that the board and the staff listen to specific feedback from wineries and just recently revamped our membership. And the dues tiers are based on the services we provide you and not the number of gallons that you produce. We've also changed the membership. Now the membership year aligns with our fiscal year, which is April 1st through March 31st. So for right now, for our 2020 fiscal year, we only have 2 levels of membership, tier 1 and tier 2. We were not creative. We ran out of creative juice on that one. But the first tier is kind of our traditional membership benefits level. We've been referring to it as kind of our basic business support services. So information, conference discounts on Bev New York or the Northeast Wine Expo, access to the financial help desk, the subsidy on wine lab services. We've got a series of educational webinars, that wine marketing toolkit that we are going to revise as well, and also a discount on the New York Wine Classic, which, if you've seen our press deck field notes lately, or if you go to our website, you will see that entries are open for this year's New York Wine Classic. Traditionally, as most of you know, we hold that event in person, usually in Watkins Glen, and we have judging on site. We couldn't do that in August. So we partnered with the Beverage Testing Institute, and they have a long respected track record. They've worked with various wineries all across the country to score wines and promote them. They've also successfully partnered with the New Jersey wine grape growers for their Governor's Cup competition. So we have 2 different entry options on our website. We're going to send out more information in Saturday's Grapevine, but members can enter their wine. I believe it's for $65 per entry. There's another kind of more bells and whistles entry option for $125. No membership discount applies. So go to newyorkwines.org, you can click on industry at the top of the page, and you should find the information for the Wine Classic, deadlines, rules. We are going to give you feedback, or Beverage Testing Institute is going to give you feedback before we announce the final results of who the winners are of best of class and categories. So it's a little bit of a different process this year, but all that information is on our website. I just wanted to point out real quickly that we do have a tier 2 of membership, which is new to us this year. So we've been testing out adding what we're calling capacity building and education services when we reimagined membership, even before kind of COVID came along, right? So we're living in this house, we're rebuilding, and there's a storm raging outside. Anyway, so we can keep going with this, right, Kristen? We really wanted to kind of put together a toolbox that provided you resources to help with overall operations, efficiency, kind of building your business, compliance skills. So we just launched this week our partnership with the WISE Academy, and I know Amy was joined us. I feel like she's like our star board member today. She's on everything. And we have also worked with Sandra Hess on DTC virtual seminars, and we are going to continue into December with a direct-to-consumer metrics intensive that's going to help people understand metrics required to manage everything from tasting room sales, wine club, phone sales, and events. Are they successful, and how do you measure that? So just a note, so tier 2 membership is $600. And it's going to be, if you're going to join now or you're going to renew now, it's prorated, through the rest of the fiscal year. So you're really only going to pay for 5 months of membership. And if you just take those 2 courses, if you just take the courses through WISE, and you went to WISE directly and paid for them, they would have been $900. So even just signing up for them and getting the recording is hopefully a huge value for your membership. So I just wanted to point that out. And like I said, we'll be introducing more benefits in the future. We've got one-on-one coaching for those of you that might be in the New York Drinks New York program. We're going to have some access to kind of financial consulting in the future with a CPA firm. So please stay tuned for that. I guess really quickly, and I'll just move through this. We're really trying to test out benefits for a tier 3 membership. This one is going to be dedicated to helping our members adapt and change in a kind of a new marketing and sales environment. And again, we knew this was necessary before COVID. It just moved the process on a lot faster. So we've kind of been experimenting with wineries who are in our New York Drinks New York program and our international export program. Everything's kind of coming together. We don't really do things in a silo anymore. So we've been hosting some virtual seminars about New York wines. Internationally, we've scheduled 6. We've had 2 for Canada and for Europe. We've had 60 to 80 guests on those, so they've been pretty robust. We have already had pretty serious inquiries from importers in London, and folks are interested in hosting our winemakers on London Wine Time and other kind of television shows. I think a couple wineries were already on Good Day Philly recently. So we're excited about some of those things that are happening. We've been featured in the press in France and Belgium and the UK. Most notably, there was a large feature on New York wines in the November edition of Decanter. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and grab it. For the US trade and media, we've got 12 seminars scheduled, so pretty aggressive. We've already delivered 5 of those as of today. We, through the New York Drinks New York program, and in the future, through Tier 3 membership, we deliver 24 trade VIPs, complimentary tasting packs of your featured wines. We scheduled, again, 3 of those per month. They're primarily for trade. One of them is open to consumers, and we're really hoping to test out how do we build that consumer audience. We are starting to work with retail stores and wine consumer organizations and even other trade associations to help build that audience of consumers for those virtual seminars. So it's exciting. And we've launched a new website, which is definitely still a work in progress, but oh so beautiful and done in-house by our own communications manager, Amy Ellsworth. So if you see her, like, huge round of applause for that. Right. So the idea is if you go there now and you click on New York Wines Online, that's going to be, we keep calling it a hub where you can find all of our virtual recordings. So whether someone who's in the trade or media looking to source a wine or put a wine on their list or write about a wine, or a consumer who's just looking to have a fun night out and they found a couple of the wines, or maybe we create a store of our own. There's so many opportunities. We're excited to kind of have that as a base to build on. For now, like I said, we're only featuring wines that are in our New York Drinks New York program or our export program. But really, as of January, we're welcoming new wineries into that program. So if you're here live with us today, I know we're recording this and we're going to put it online. People are interested in signing up. In January, we should be able to welcome new folks. So I think I went over 5 minutes. And I know that you guys can probably read the next slide. So here's what's next. Feel free to explore any of these options, whether it's signing up or renewing for membership, or reaching out to Jen Cooper or I to talk about how you can be a part of the virtual seminars, or signing up for the classic, or if you have questions about the seminars or the webinars. We are doing as much as we can to make the house livable while we're waiting to get to that dream house state. So thanks for those of you who are still hanging on with us here. I appreciate it. But we're excited about it, if you couldn't tell. We're all pretty geeked out about it. That's it. That's all I have, Sam. I tried to do it fast.
You did a great job. I know we have some other guests on the line that maybe are not winery owners, but they're part of the universe of telling a great story of wines and New York wines. So, you know, Linda, Diana, I don't know if you guys have any questions.
I think Belle may have answered the one question I had, which was for the Padilla people, which was where do they take what they've done so far next? What's their next steps? But I'm not sure if she did that.
Oh,
I'm
Perry, if you
looking
I
want,
think we have yet to.
go ahead, Linda.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about your marketing plans as you go forward. Because it sounds very exciting from what you've said, but I want to know more.
Yeah, good. We'll continue to lift the curtain. And I think, yeah, Val, I'd defer to you, but I imagine much more detail will be coming in the next couple of weeks here.
That's good. Thanks. Keep me
We're
posted.
excited.
Yeah, we're in the phase where we're I guess maybe saying not a house metaphor, but where we've got the ingredients together, and so we're deciding what we're going to bake first. You know, those core assets we're going to start with, because when I started this call, I was like, there's certain things that we need to do to, walk, chew gum and walk, or walk and chew gum, and so we're going to start with those kind of core things that, what you need to do as a self-respecting wine region. And I'll just say it starts with maps. I think we're definitely going to be updating our maps, because as we've been doing these virtual tastings, we realize that there's just sort of a core set of, educational assets that you need to tell the story. And one thing is helping people understand the place, and you need a good map to do that. So how that map looks is what we're sort of figuring out right now. But that's, I think, to go back to the house metaphor, we're starting with the simple things, and we're mapping out what the more ambitious things are going to be, and allocating funding to them, or, figuring out if we need to pursue funding through other sources, or, just optimizing the resources that we get from the state and our grants, and, through our programs like New York Drinks New York. So we're not just kind of doing something ambitious and can't support it. We want to build out the assets so they're all, they work together. They're like puzzle pieces. And I know it helps to be more tangible, but we're going to continue to update everyone. And, I think in the next 2 months, we're going to have some hard assets that we'll be able to share, and, explain how those will be used. But maps.
Seconded.
Samantha, Charmaine, I see you guys are on the line. Do you have any questions or comments?
Hi, Charmaine. No, I'm just watching and observing. I'm a marketer. For those of you that know me, I work at the Times Union in Albany. I'm community engagement director. I have another house in the Finger Lakes. I live on the east side of Keuka Lake also, and I've been pouring wine for 5 or 6 different wineries for many, many years. So I love to see the plan coming together.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, or this afternoon. And we have Pilar McKay on the line too. I don't know if you have any reactions or comments.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you for hosting all of us. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm out of Geneva. I work with 29 Design Studio, and just love being updated on what you all do. You do such incredible things. And my last big conference was Bev New York, so I hope that it's my first conference out of COVID in the future. Not this year, I guess, but
Yep.
in the future.
Thanks for joining. Well, I think, Charlie, if you want to close this out, or if you have any comments before we finish. Charlie is our board chair for the Wine and Grape Foundation.
Hey, everyone. I don't have a whole lot to say, except that I'm really excited about this entire initiative, and I think that it's going to be a great success. It's great to hear the feedback from everybody today. I'm glad everyone feels positive about the way the foundation is moving toward this. It's a great marketing push, and it's going to be something that serves us for years and years. And thank you, everybody, for making the time to participate in the call today.
Great. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no further questions or comments, we appreciate you all taking the time to join us today. And like I said, there's more to come, and we'll have more exciting things to share, hopefully either the end of this year or January 2021. So enjoy Halloween and your socially distance or however you're able to do it with your family. So hopefully it's with a New York State wine and some candy.
Thank you for the pairing options.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Belle.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone.